A data-thin card for you this week, but the model still found some plays for us to talk about. This is episode 49 of Fighting with Numbers, UFC Oklahoma City.
Fight!
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Fighting with Numbers. Last week was tough for many. The model went 4-5. But look, most of those losses were actually expected. We had tier 3 dogs, tier 5 favorites on the card. Those exist for a reason. Those are expected losses for the most part in the model. You're not going to cash every one of those. Honestly, that's why we avoid those. That's the game. That's the sport we play, and the sport is gambling. But I will say, the one that hurt the most, for me personally, probably not for many, but for me, was Benoit Saint Denis, tier 1 favorite. Man, I was in love with that play, and that did not come through. That one hurt. He's been one of the most reliable guys I could bet on in the division, and Paddy Pimblett just slept him cold. That was a nasty choke he put on him. Credit where it's due. Paddy Pimblett, you showed up, my friend. And then there was the main event. Did anyone see a main event? I don't even know where to begin with what the return of Conor McGregor was, because honestly, we're still waiting for the return of Conor McGregor. Look, if you had Max Holloway in a bet, congratulations. I mean, the model was right on the prediction, honestly, but it wasn't really a fight. As a main event, for people who've been waiting for years, Conor blows his knee out in the first round. It's over before it really even started when you watch it. I'm not going to feed into the conspiracies on whether he was hurt or not ahead of time. That's up to y'all to play with. It's hard to feel anything but disappointment. But honestly, I don't feel bad for Conor, and it's not because of my thoughts of him or the way I feel about the guy, but I feel bad for the fans. I feel bad for the people who paid money to be in that building. I feel bad for people who are fans of him and who've waited for years to watch this guy return to the cage. Because man, that was just a huge letdown, and who knows when and if we see him again in the cage. I know he's got a fight left on his contract, but are we really going to see him again? That's the big question. Are we really going to see him again? And honestly, stop selling me Conor McGregor as a main event. That's all I ask, is if he decides to come back, if he's able to get healthy again and get back into the cage and get his head right and get his body right, don't sell me this as a main event. Please don't. At the worst, an Apex main event. But obviously he doesn't deserve that, but I don't know. Just stop selling me Conor McGregor the main event. It's like Jey Uso the main event. Just stop doing it. Anyways, we move on because we have to, because UFC OKC is here this week. That's a tricky one to sell. Overall, the model sits at 82.49 and 6 on the year. That's 62%. We're going to dip and rise around that number for the rest of the season, honestly. But the goal stays the same. Find the profitable spots and protect the bankroll when the edges aren't there. This week, the UFC heads to Oklahoma City. A little bit of a shorter card for us here on the data side. We've only got 2 fights to break down here on the podcast, 3 total really even modeled. There's not a lot of data for us to break down on this card, so we're going to make it a quick one. But if you'd like, after I get through the fights here, I'm going to do something a little different this week. I'm going to start doing this in weeks where I just don't have a lot of fight data to back up the conversation. We're going to have a little fun. I'm going to rip a pack open of cards this week. I got UFC cards sitting behind me this week, and we're just going to rip them open. I've had them sitting on my desk for a couple weeks. Why not have a little fun? Why not fill a little space here in the UFC conversation? And we'll get to that after the main event here. So the breakdown's coming. Let's get into it. But you must remember, I am Rob Moreno, a.k.a. Bobby Knuckles, a.k.a. The Robbio. Find me across all social medias at The Robbio, full model data and dashboards at fightingwithnumbers.com. Let's go.
Fight!
By the way, I was just staring at my hat, and I wear a lot of these golf hats with the rope on them. I'm not sure what this style is. I do appreciate them. I do love them. I have many of them. But if you ask me what this rope was for, I have no idea. I'm not the best golfer out there. I'm definitely a very casual golfer, casual watcher of golf as well. And I've yet to see anyone use this rope for any sort of function. Anyways, let's start this fight card. Actually, we're going to go all the way up to the co-main event. Let me start by saying what needs to be said about it. There is no knocking Jared Cannonier. The man has been down for a fight with anyone at any time his entire career. The killer gorilla shows up. That's just who he is. But the numbers are going to tell a little bit of a different story here. Cannonier's 1-3 in his last 4, with his most recent fight a decision loss to Michael Venom Page, coming nearly a year ago last August. He's 42 years old now in one of the deepest middleweight divisions we've seen in a while. The question isn't whether he can still fight. The question is what's left to prove for the man, right? I know the guy can bang. I know the guy's down to scrap. But what does he have left to prove? And can the body still do what the heart wants to do, really, when it comes inside the octagon? We could have asked that about Conor McGregor last weekend, right? Across from him, Christian Leroy Duncan, just 31 years old, English, and riding a 4-fight win streak. I'm sure he'll be watching the World Cup later. Most recently, a decision over Roman Dolidze back in March. He's 14-2 professionally since making his pro debut just in 2020. That's crazy. And this is a genuine opportunity to make a statement in the division with a win over Jared Cannonier. So let's hit the data. XR percentage, Duncan at 64%, Cannonier 45%. That 45% is the number that concerns me the most. Dipping below 50% at this stage of his career for Jared Cannonier at 42 years old, in a division that is very competitive against a guy who is very hungry to climb the ranks, that's a serious red flag for me. Now, the striking tells the story a little more clearly. Cannonier lands 4.42 significant strikes per minute with a near flat 0.08 differential. He's eating shot for shot right now. You punch, he punch. Duncan lands nearly identical volume at 4.43. But he carries a 1.85 differential, meaning he's absorbing just 2.59 significant strikes per minute. That kind of striking efficiency against a hard hitter like Jared Cannonier is how you survive and thrive in this division against an opponent like this. Power is real for both men. 12 knockdowns combined between the guys, but it's Cannonier who's been dropped 8 times in his UFC career and has suffered 3 TKO losses. Let's remember that. Duncan has never been stopped in his UFC career or been dropped for that matter. The durability picture is lopsided here, and it could be a concern, and it could be the direction I lean this week, but I won't give away too much. The grappling probably won't be the deciding factor here either. Let's be real about it. The UFC wants a striking match here. Cannonier would be the aggressor on the mat if I had to pick one out of the two. 10 takedowns, 40% accuracy compared to just 2 for Duncan. But Duncan does hold a 63% takedown defense, and the UFC clearly wants to see these guys trade hands, if I'm being honest. That's the card they're booking right now. You know, oh my gosh, especially after what we saw last week, they definitely want to see a great scrap here. By the way, speaking of UFC 329 last weekend, besides the main event, from top to bottom, hands down, it was a fantastic card. So not knocking it, just Conor McGregor kind of blew the whole situation and his knee. Now, the model, let's run some numbers. Christian Leroy Duncan, tier 1 favorite. Strong confidence, by the way. The problem, of course, is the price. Minus 300. Heck, I even saw minus 340 out there today, depending on where you look. So on a smaller betting card for us with limited parlay options, there could be something there. There may be another big favorite out there that the model finds, but that money line just isn't getting touched straightforward. Now, it is early in the week. I am recording this on a Monday instead of a Tuesday as well. The prop market's where this one's probably going to live. I just don't have those available to me right now to look at. So I had to go across the way, if you know what I mean. CLD by decision plus 115 is an option. It seems to be the way the book thinks this one's going to go, but my eyes are on CLD by knockout at plus 180, if I'm being honest. I think Jared Cannonier at this age, I think a guy like Duncan can get it done like that. Duncan has the striking efficiency and the finishing ability to get Cannonier out of there. I think it'll be a statement win for him. And the chin concern on that side is real. You know, props, like I said, they're not available here locally in Vegas just yet. I haven't actually made this bet. It's the way I'm leaning. We'll see what that number looks like when it finally arrives here in Las Vegas, when they're finally bold enough to put them up. But that's where I'm landing when the fight night gets closer. Duncan is the model's prediction. I'm hands down definitely finding a way to put him on my betting slip. The money line most likely will stay in the pocket. I'll watch out for the knockout prop. Oklahoma main event. Dricus, Duplessis versus Kamaru, Uzman. Who would have thought this matchup would happen? And who would have thought it'd be an exciting matchup? Honestly, it's kind of a good matchup. Main event time. And this one, it has some intrigue attached to it, if we're being honest. Dricus Duplessis, DDP, is coming back after losing the middleweight championship to Khamzat Chimaev last August. A 5-round pounding by the now former champ as well. And that loss stings in a particular way, you know, because the man he beat twice is now champion, right? Sean Strickland. Duplessis beat him twice, and now Strickland has beat Chimaev. I know for a fact DDP wants that belt back. He's watching 2 men trade his belt back and forth, and he wants back in the conversation. He's gonna need a statement win there, though, if he's gonna re-enter the conversation. And out of nowhere, entering the chat is Kamaru Usman making a move up to middleweight. Not his first time at middleweight, but he is making a move up to middleweight here at the 185 division. This is an entirely new territory for him, as I mentioned. He did fight Khamzat Chimaev back in the day at 185. So he's done it before. We know he can do it again. But he is 39 years old now, and his last fight was over a year ago in June 2025, where he grinded out a very hard-fought 5-round decision over Joaquin Buckley. By the way, at the time, as a plus 205 underdog, I happened to have him that night. He dominated the majority of those rounds. The Uzman who showed up that night was still very much a dangerous elite-level fighter. It wasn't the washed-up, knees buckled guy I think we all thought he was. And he returned, and he looked poised. He looked ready to fight. But now he's taking a ton of time off again. So we'll see what we have here in the returning Kamaru Usman. Let's not forget what that man accomplished. At one point, Kamaru Usman was being discussed as potentially the greatest welterweight champion we'd ever seen. And the only reason that conversation feels distant is because of how dominant he was for so long that people started taking it for granted, I think. Although omitting GSP from that conversation is a crime, but that's a different podcast. GSP will always be the GOAT. Now, the point is, Kamaru Usman is no chump, and he would only take this fight if he genuinely believed he had a shot. Does the model think he has a shot? Well, let's look at some numbers. XR percentage, Usman at 79%, Duplessis at 56%. That is a significant gap. DDP's number, although he went on his championship run, has only lost one fight since that run. It's taken a hit, and I'm assuming going 5 hard rounds with Chimaev didn't help, but 56% is still a concern for a man trying to reclaim championship status. The striking picture is interesting. DDP lands 5.18 significant strikes per minute with a 0.85 differential. His awkward cage movement and unorthodox striking has given opponents problems in the past. It always has. It's given the audience a problem before. But Usman lands 4.16 significant strikes per minute with a 1.50 differential, absorbing just 2.67 per minute. He's the cleaner striker here. He takes less damage, and he's been sneaky powerful throughout his career. Let's not forget those knockouts of said weak chins like Jorge Masvidal, but 10 knockdowns scored in the UFC. Whether that power travels up to middleweight at 39 years old is one of the unanswered questions here that we'll just have to wait until the weekend to see. But here's where the model really finds its answer. Kamaru Usman, no doubt, 91% control rate in the clinch and ground time. 91. 43% of that ground time, by the way, spent in a dominant control position. He has scored 63 takedowns at 44% accuracy and attempts 4.04 takedowns per 5 minutes. So he may not be overly accurate, but man, he is relentless in his pursuit of the ground game. He grinds. That's what he does. And DDP's takedown defense sits at 35%. 35. Chimaev took him down 12 times in their fight. I'm not going to start doing MMA math because one guy beat the other guy and then this guy couldn't take down that guy, but Usman isn't Chimaev, but the vulnerability on the mat is clearly documented here. If Usman gets this fight to the ground, and he almost always at least gets this fight to the ground once, DDP is going to have a very, very long night. The model accounts for what it can. As I always say, the caveat, the weight class changes are not something we take into account. It's not something the numbers can fully capture, but there is one middleweight fight on his resume. So what do we get? We get Kamaru Usman as a live dog, tier 1 live dog, 80% win probability. Now, I'm not going to blow smoke here. Live dogs have been a rough ride here. No pun intended on the rough part, but that was funny now that I said it out loud. We were 8-3 on our live dogs at one point. After Krylov's last TKO last week, we're now sitting at 8-8. So yes, do the math. I'm not enjoying it. Trust me. I hate it more than you do listening to it. The tier has been cold, and I've been reducing the unit size accordingly until we get back on track, because I can't let the bankroll bleed from this tier. But they are still positive. The dogs are still keeping us positives. Here's the thing. We're on the right side of the odds nearly every single time. The hits just haven't been coming home. So this is a small card. I'm going to take a flyer on the big dog here. Usman at plus 220 right now. If he's willing to take this fight, he believes in himself. And his blueprint for winning it's right there in the numbers, if I'm being honest. Get it to the ground, smother him, control the rounds. We've seen DDP look completely lost on the ground. So making DDP fight the fight he doesn't want to fight is the way to win here. Kamaru Usman at plus 120, live dog. Let's get the tiers back in order. It's a small play, but we need it to come home. All right, and that is our fight breakdown for UFC Oklahoma City. So it's a short card for us this week here on Fighting with Numbers, which means I've got a little extra time to kill. And I've been wanting to do this for a while. I've had this box sitting on my desk. It's kind of an idea I had for when I have close to no breakdowns. This actually was even more than a breakdown than I anticipated because I have 2 bets on the card. But let's open a pack. I've got a box behind me. Let me grab the box. So if you're watching the YouTube, here's the box. As you can see, I'm going to try this multi-camera thing going on. So should be able to see my hands in another shot. Hopefully I edited this properly, but this is my first time opening this box outside of the plastic being ripped off. So let's open this live on the pod. Bam. As you can see, this pack is completely unopened. I've got to adjust my microphone here for us to do this. So, by the way, that's Seth Rollins right there. Seth freaking Rollins hanging out in the background. Put this up there. And I've got no information about these cards. By the way, the people that got me into this, shout out to Al King and my boy Isaiah Wrinkle. If you're into card rips, if you're into collecting that, check out Proper Hobby over on Whatnot. They are amazing, so entertaining. Any sport you want, by the way. NBA, NFL, MLB. They got some soccer on there, some football, and including some Disney stuff. Sorry, my boy Isaiah loves those Disney cards. I do too. They're actually very fun to watch rip. But I'm going to open this tiny little pack. As you can see, it only has 4 cards, which kind of feels like a ripoff, but whatever. I'm not into this as much as they are. Let's open this up. This is a 2025 pack, I believe, so who knows what we'll get. This is just for vibes, y'all. Let's see what we get. I think that was a little bit of a preview there, but we get, hey, look at that, Michael Chandler. Not looking as good as he does nowadays there. But okay, we got Michael Chandler there. We've got Khabib Nurmagomedov. That's actually pretty good. These are pretty good so far. I'm not mad at that. Oh, dropped it. I'm not good at this. I'm not as good as my boy Al on these cards. Let's see what else we got. We got Edson Barboza. Ooh, that dude's a legend. Dude's a banger. That guy will fight anybody. 2 Michael Chandler cards. Wow, what an honor to have 2 Michael Chandler cards. This one's got a little color thing going. So if you're watching this on YouTube, let me know what exactly I'm pulling here because I have no idea. Yeah, cool. This one's kind of like sepia colored. Anyways, and the final one. Bam! Top of the class, middleweight Dricus Duplessis. You guys saw I opened this pack blind on the broadcast. So no way I knew that I was going to pull the main event fighter of this week on this. Unfortunately, I'm fading him on the pod, but here we go. Dricus Duplessis. If he pulls it off, this will be behind me next week. If not, we're going to hide this somewhere. But there you go. A little rip card there. We'll keep doing this. I guess it's more than 4 cards. I just realized that. I don't know what I'm doing here. But that was fun. I'll keep doing that. Anytime we have a small card, I'll find a way to entertain the rest of the time. But hey, Khabib Nurmagomedov, 2 Michael Chandler cards, and a little Dricus Duplessis in there. Shout out Edson Barboza as well in the pack. All right, that's UFC Oklahoma City. Shout out DDP, I guess, for coming in there in the pack. But let's get home, Kamaru Uzman. Hopefully y'all enjoyed a little bit of that. I don't know how that translates to the podcast, but that's why you got to check me out on YouTube. Search me. Fighting with Numbers podcast on YouTube is also live as well. The Rabio, you know what to do. The model sits at 82, 49, and 6 on the year. 62%. We grind forward. We will stay relentless in our pursuit of this model. We hover around here all year. We will find our way to profitability. So, as a reminder, head over to fightingwithnumbers.com for the full season dashboard, full model data, and a couple tale of the tapes on there. And as always, find me on X, Twitter, and Instagram at the Rabio. Look a couple pictures from my journey at the MMA Awards last week. I was going to say last week. And if you're enjoying the show, please, if you don't know what to do, let me remind you, you got to subscribe. You got to leave a rating. You got to share the episode with a fellow fight fan or share it with a family member. Find someone close to you, write them a letter and tell them to check out this podcast. It'll mean everything to me. I appreciate all of you that are tuning in every single week. I appreciate you so much. Enjoy the violence.
Perfect.